it is necessary to purge the establishment.
What she's suggesting that churches do, a focus on...
That's not necessarily a good thing to start with.
They're stating
it wasn't around when we needed the greatest generation of the 30s or 40s.
It happened before the election because there are too many Republicans that are afraid that their wrongdoing is going to...
It's unacceptable, and I'm not going to sit here, stay silent, and not call it out. I'm calling out their lies.
Do they think that we are so stupid that we will not notice and find out?
With that, do you see Texas turning blue?
I see Texas getting closer and closer being split down the middle. You know, used to your swing would probably be a 20-25% difference, positive for the conservatives, but now it's getting closer to 8 to 10%. So the trend is going that way. It's going to take quite some time, but yes, I mean with the onslaught of people moving in, come here with seeking the no state income tax, seeking the freedoms and the more affordable housing and the affordable living. We have a kind of a saying around here: "Welcome to Texas. Check your politics at the gate."
And so people keep asking me about when the next election is. I said, when I decide to retire, I guess. I don't know.
That's awesome. Oh my God. Is it safe to say they don't have you on the payroll?
Yeah, well, yeah. I keep telling them, the mayor of Fern's mansion needs fixing up. I had AC problems. I said, we're going to have to raise taxes here in town because I got to have, I don't have a helicopter or anything. So I don't know what's going on with these citizens, but.
Daddy needs nice things.
That's right.
Actually, our guy that passed away, who actually, it was kind of like for him to get together and just kind of, remember him, and it's only been a short time, but it was kind of nice, the guys that work with him and stuff like that. So, and he was a young guy, and it's very, it just hurts your heart really bad when that happens, and you never want to see that. You never want to see that in anybody, especially officers that have to deal with this 24/7, because your job doesn't end when you come home. It's still going in your head all day long.
I ran a campaign against the BLM movement, not because I'm against Black lives. I couldn't be
Right.
I couldn't be more pro-Black, pro-Latino, pro-American, pro-everyone. Right.
Right.
There's no way in the world that I would go against the idea that is being branded by the BLM. What I was against was the political violence. Right. And I was against the fact that our local leaders in the city of Portland and in the metro area, in Clackamas County, Washington County, they weren't protecting us.
When did you first realize that you were this brilliant patriot, that you had this inside of you?
Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, I was always brought up with love of country, and my dad, when I was younger, would bring me to political events, and he himself has tried to run for office, and he's always been really involved. So I always had an interest in politics.
I'm not going to have my clients do it. I don't think that's good on their respiratory system, putting all that pressure while they're working out. Because of the lockdowns, I had to shut down my studio. So I've had to go to in-home training.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been up to my clients. And so far, none of them have required it.
Okay, so this is a big rule in our house. It's been the rule since my husband got out of the academy. Under no circumstance are you allowed to keep anything bottled up inside. I want to know everything. From talking to other Leo wives, I was hearing, I was warned about divorce rates and fighting and depression. And so that's something I've always left it completely open to my husband. I want to know everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly, because I feel like that's how we support them. I want him to unload on me, and my husband does. He tells me everything.
Yeah.
And I listen to it, and I'm supportive, and I hope he feels that, because I want to make sure that he knows he's never alone in anything.
It just gets crazy where there'd be shootings or whatnot. And so if I didn't have Second Amendment rights, that's where it comes down to, is I don't feel like I'd have the proper tools necessary to protect myself versus someone or a criminal that had something that I couldn't level out the playing field, essentially.
we got to stop complaining and sitting and watching TV, and we have to get involved. And so that's what I was doing. I was going to rallies, and it was positive and it was fun. And so many people in the summer were like, just, they really wanted community, you know what I mean? And unity together and be on this fight for what's right, because we recognize the lies in culture, the lies in politics, and what's at stake. Our freedoms are at stake, you know, they're after our children, right? And so we have to be a voice in the darkness. And in order to do that, we have to discern the truth, right? And it comes from our God-given rights that are not given to us by the government.
Messaging and dissemination of it, and how you can, as long as you repeat it and you repeat it, people are going to believe it. And you repeat it enough and you repeat it loudly, and to a point where it took over our entire lives for the last year. You know, it doesn't matter if it's correct information or not. It doesn't matter if it's inconsistent. It was about what is being said now, and why aren't you doing it, or why aren't I doing it, you know.
People don't want to pay attention to it or not. We are in good versus evil, and no matter what happens, you have to continue to use your voice. You have to continue to use your voice and be active any way you can, while being peacefully, never being violent. Hopefully it never goes to that point, and I don't stand for that. So hopefully, you know, we can turn things around, and hopefully everybody can start waking up.
Hi, everyone. I just want to say thank you, first of all, to my sister for allowing us the opportunity to come in here and share a story today. You know, I'm very emotional already just hearing you say, you know, those things that you said, knowing where we've been and where we are now. It really is an amazing transformation. And so I could not be more blessed with this opportunity to be on here today to share my story with you guys. So, you know, we are both involved in the recovery community in Vancouver, Washington. It's an amazing recovery community. For those of you that don't know, growing up, I always, you know, I had a good life. You know, we grew up in a great neighborhood with lots of kids our age. You know, my parents were together. I had lots of friends, but I always just felt like I was different than anyone else. You know, I just felt like there was something missing. I felt like I was on the outside looking in, and I don't really know. I don't really know why that was. I just felt that way for a really long time until I got to high school, and you know, I learned that I could fit in a little bit better with the misfit kids and the kids that had, you know, kind of just had each other, did their own thing, didn't really belong to any certain clique or group. I just fit in there, you know, and I also found drugs and alcohol at that time. And, you know, when I found those things, I felt like immediately like I was smarter, taller, prettier, funnier. I cared less about what people thought about me. My insecurities were gone. I felt like I found a solution to my problems. You know?
I come from a good family. Like we do have a history of addiction and alcoholism in my family. My grandpa died an early death due to alcoholism. Lost a couple uncles along the way as well due to that. I've got an uncle still that is whatever he is. I don't know what you would call it, but he's not clean and sober, but he doesn't smoke crack anymore. So anyways.
And so when you shared that with me, I was watching it. I was laying in bed next to my husband, and I was like, oh my gosh, literally, I'm not even kidding. Tear. That's why I have my tissue. It really touched me. And, you know, what I do is time consuming, and I'm putting my neck on the line by having my face out there. And, but when I see kind comments like what you said, it just really hits home why I'm doing what I'm doing. So I just want to say thank you for the kind words and the words of encouragement. And I think very highly of you as well.
Underage girls that they had, or rape that was real, that was published on Pornhub. It's disgusting.
Wow.
So
wow.
It bothers me. I pray a lot, and I hope we find someone one day that will be willing to take this up. And I feel like Trump did. You
Right.
saw how many traffickers were arrested under his leadership, and I'm scared we won't have that.
Does your mom know you're stupid? You're like, no. Oh, so she doesn't know you're stupid? Okay. So you have to reject it and say, I just reject it at its foundation, and that's the only way to fight against it, and to tell them about your own life. Because my life, I did not grow up privileged. Divorced family. My mom was borderline. She could have got on food stamps, and she didn't because she's too proud and she's too conservative. And my dad lived in very crappy situations. I grew up in the ghetto side of the neighborhood. I was the only white kid in one of my schools. I used to get picked on all the time for being white. So I experienced racism firsthand, and that's not in the critical race agenda. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't fit in their category. So you getting to know people and telling people your story is the way to go. But yeah, parents are nervous.
In law enforcement, your day is not going to compare to theirs and to some of the things that they deal with and might see. So, and that's part of the problem too, that the comparing is a problem. So don't compare. It's all relative. You know, your bad day maybe isn't, you know, in comparison as bad, but it was still a bad day. So when you have that compassion, it helps.
Who would kill especially black babies, because she would see me as a weed of life that I need to be eliminated. I mean, it was great to be around like-minded people like myself, even though I was only black, but they still welcomed me with open arms, because that's why I like being around pro-life people and patriots who are pro-life, pro-God, and pro-gun.
They had a really good point of China doesn't have this PC problem that we have. They don't have this woke culture issue that we have. They promote masculinity on a much greater level than what we do in the United States. And so it's not an issue in other countries. It's just an issue here in the U.S. And
All right, I want to talk about dating in the Los Angeles area as an Asian conservative.
I knew that I was a conservative, like straight up. Like I admitted to myself, like I'm a fucking conservative. Like I admitted that to myself when I turned 25 or 6, right? I didn't come out as conservative, but I knew that I was. So, but even when I admitted to myself that I was a conservative, I knew how hard it would be for me to date as a conservative, or if people knew I was conservative in Los Angeles. So even on my dating apps, I didn't say anything about politics. And sometimes I would, if they asked me what my thoughts were on Trump or whatever, like I would lie and you know, like a coward, I would pretend that I was a liberal just to get some pussy. So, so that went on for a couple of so that went on for a couple of years, because I'm a young guy in my 20s, and like who doesn't, you know, but once I turned 27, I think, so here's once I'm 28, I got this like, and the more obviously over the years I just became more and more and more conservative. Like I felt this, like, it's cliche and corny to say, but it was like a true emptiness. Like when I would go on Instagram and Instagram's algorithm would suggest like different political accounts to me, and those political accounts would post the pictures of like their family on a ranch, mom, dad, daughter, son, and it's just them, a family unit on a ranch somewhere with this. Like I found myself like, you know, this word gets used often, but I don't think people really understand what I felt, a longing for that. It was so drastic, the change in me. And so I couldn't do it anymore. So on my dating apps, I needed to filter out anybody that doesn't match my values and beliefs for marriage material. So on all my dating apps, I openly stated that I'm a conservative in the first sentence, right? Literally right now, my dating apps, the opening sentence is a proud conservative, patriotic, Second Amendment, country music, fuck yeah, like stuff like that, right?
That's total horseshit.
I see both sides.
That was not there. That was not there before she got kicked out. And you know what? Charlie Kirk follows me. I've talked to him personally on Instagram. So that's BS. That's not true. Not that you're doing bad reporting, but you know, I've talked to Charlie Kirk, and you see my content, so you can't tell me that, You know what I mean? Like that's so hypocritical and just covering their behind on the way after the fact. You know what I mean? So yeah, they were dead wrong for doing that.
My conservative husband felt the same way you did. He didn't like it. Cray, but you know, now we're friends forever. But Brandon, let's dive into it. You have been around. You've been travel nursing through this pandemic. I like to say plandemic, but I'll leave it there.
I just caught someone's question there. They asked me if those patients died from COVID-19 or a car accident. I'm assuming he's referring to or whatever injury they came in with. So what I saw in Orange County, COVID-19 was the hair that kind of pushed them over the edge. They had a lot of other stuff going on with them, diabetes, morbid obesity, but COVID-19 was that hair that kind of pushed them over the edge and caused the landslide.
Suspecting white male went to an ATM to get a few bucks out, and then you know, some maniac person walks in and splits his head open with a hatchet right in the middle of New York City, the financial district, where there's tons of cops and security, but the guy almost got killed. He didn't die, thankfully, but at the same time, the crime is so out of control here that people's quality of life is being crushed. At the same time, he wants to fine business owners $2,000 if they don't ask their loyal customers to see their vaccine cards. And it's just, you know, it's just they give people Mets tickets if they, you know, show up for a court hearing. That's like worse penalty than going to jail, going to a Met game, if you think about it.
I did not know about that. They are literally giving Mets tickets if you show up. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Talk about pandering.
If they show up for your court hearing, they give you Met tickets. Okay.
Creators want to know what the trick is to staying afloat while they're trying to shut us down.
Learn how to write appeals, because you're going to be doing it a lot. And make sure that you try to keep your content as PG as possible. Other than that, I don't know. I mean, that's how I've done it. It's worked for me.
That's good to know. You know, I do drop quite a few F-bombs in some of mine, and so I could see they like to say mine's hate speech. And so I'm like, okay, maybe the F-bomb is the hate speech. I don't know. I just had my very first successful appeal though with TikTok, and they apologized and put my video back on there. That is the only one I have ever had that happen with. Okay, so I have to circle back around with you on your song though, because I know, so your father served in the military, right?
My dad served in the Air Force, yes ma'am.
In the Air Force. Now, was he your inspiration for Mr. Red, White, and Blue, or what really inspired you to write that?
My daddy, Papa, was the inspiration for my new patriotic single, American Made. 3-star General Leroy Sisco, myself, we give a home away to a combat veteran or a Gold Star family. When the national anthem played, Chris, it was a very different look in his eye than everybody else in the room. So I grabbed my guitar, I put my strap around my shoulder, and started walking around the arena. As I'm walking around, I ended up just start strumming. Hold on a second.
Yes, I was hoping you'd bust it out.
So
I'm excited.
I started walking around, and it's the guts and it's the glory. 100 stripes on his doors. It's the Pledge of Allegiance on the 4th of July. And my buddy Trevor was like, go, keep going. And I was like, it's them handwritten letters from hope. It's some sleepless nights alone. It's his newborn baby he left with his wife. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, lay down, he is alive. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, for these stars and stripes. Hey.
The Hispanic vote is so crucial in the United States. I feel like there's a lot of power within the Hispanic community. And what you're doing serves a massive purpose for those of us who have these strong moral beliefs.
Right, exactly. And we believe that the Latino vote is the most important vote in America because it can completely change the tide of America, because they are so conservative and they really do believe in the constitutional values that we have, but for some reason they're tricked into voting for the left, these socialist and super, super liberal ideals. And so, yeah, it's really, really important. We really believe that it's the most important movement in America to keep our conservative values, to keep our Constitution intact. And if we can just slowly but surely educate them and let them know that, conservatives aren't the demons that the left makes them out to be. I mean, really, it's a really, really good marketing ploy that the liberal left has instigated in order to trick Latinos into voting for the left.
Yeah, Washington State has 8 million people roughly. 4 million of those live in 2 counties around Seattle, Pierce and King County. Those 2 counties are blue. Most of the rest of the state is red. Even northern coastal areas southern coastal areas are mixed. They're purple. And central and eastern are all red except for Spokane. And Spokane's fairly small percentage of the number. However, you take King, Pierce County, and Spokane, and you have a majority. There's no way to get around it. The rest of the cowboys and the farmers, they're like the Eastern Oregon cowboys and farmers. They're left out.
It has to be in your heart to want to be able to help people. And there is a difference between good and bad cops because of that, because some put a badge on every day and walk out the door and you think that they should be respected. And that's not how it works. Respect is earned, definitely. It is how you speak to people. It's not how you want to be treated, but it's how you treat others.
I had a weird head issue one night, and I never have head issues, and it was kind of like a vertigo experience, and then it went away the next day, but a week later I woke up and my peripheral vision was gone and my right eye, and it was just like, man, that's kind of weird. But my body felt fine, everything felt fine. But then that night my head started to hurt, had a little pressure in it, not crazy. And typically I'd take an Advil or do something, my headaches go away, but it didn't do anything. Next day my head felt worse, and this was a Wednesday now. I was at the field trying to go through our routine. I said, hey, can I go to the doctor? Like, I never have head issues. My vision's still a little messed up. Let me just go to the doctor. So I went to the doctor. They sent me there. And, basically that guy had to fight for me. That was a Wednesday. He had to fight for me the next day. He's like, let me take you to the neurologist. Obviously, it's a head issue. I can't do anything for you. But let me go, especially because it's still persisting. And it was like when I was moving, I would feel the pressure like a little bit more in my head. And I was like, I just knew it was weird. So Thursday morning, it was even worse. And I went there. And I got an MRI at the neurologist. And they basically came out with the results. Like, I was just, at this point, I was like, something's happening. Something's wrong. I kind of wanted him to tell me something rather than say, I don't know, we'll see. I was like, no, something's wrong. So he did, but unfortunately it was not good news. He came out and he said, hey, listen, you got a pretty serious situation here. You got an AVM. We've had success in the past, obviously remove and take care of these, but however, your situation is pretty serious. Like, we're going to need to do surgery tomorrow morning. So this is Thursday.
And for those watching, what exactly is an AVM?
So an AVM it's called an arterial venous malformation, and it's something that where when your brain is developing, you can get a clot of blood vessels. You have blood vessels that are smaller, capillaries and arteries and veins that go through your head that distribute blood. Arteries are the biggest ones, and capillaries and the blood vessels are the smallest ones. But they can, in your brain development, they can kind of, at times, the AVM they can get tangled up a little bit. They're not always 100% an issue, I think, and they're not always super detrimental. But when they get tangled up, that can either stop one or clog one or do something, and it can swell up, and so one of them can burst, or it can be an issue for sure. Best brain surgeon in the world for AVMs. He's a rock star. He's popular. His name's Dr. Robert Spetzler. And he was literally going to China the very next day, and he was going to be gone for a few weeks.
Oh, wow.
And so the timing of even my symptoms was crazy. And the fact that I was injured, I was only in Arizona because my shoulder was hurting at the time. And so that's the only reason that I was right down the street from this hospital and this guy. So there's a lot of crazy coincidences that were just lining up that that ended up putting me at the right place, right time. And he did the surgery next morning. It was great and successful. And I was able to leave the hospital 3 days later. And my only rehab was to just rest, and the rest has been history. I had a checkup a couple months later, and they said, you're 100% good to go.
One way with one part of it,
right,
and so different with the other part of it.
right.
Again, I am all for vaccinations. I just think it's the right way to go. But if you were okay not to be vaccinated when months ago when they needed you,
Right,
well, how can you just
right. Yeah.
become the opposite today?
Exactly. It's
Thing, seriously, what are the
How
odds?
hilarious is
Oh
that
my
video?
God.
Did you see? You can tell that it was 6 years ago. It was like, be as tan as you possibly can, hair as black as you can, like Jersey chic, man.
I
my
love
God.
it. Oh my gosh, that was great. That is fantastic. Can you show us your book one more time? That is
Yes.
out. I know we can get it on Amazon. Well, there's the image
it's
up
called
there.
Targeted. You can get it on
Love it.
Amazon. It's the same price. However, if you buy it through my website, I will person and sign it and send it out personally.
Ooh,
So
way
if
better.
you go to patriot.com, super easy, patriotbarbie.com, and I will personalize it and mail it out to you. So
I
much
love
better
that
deal.
because then we're not supporting Jeff Bezos. He doesn't need any more of our money.
Yeah, we actually did the interview in April.
Okay.
They flew me out to DC for a day, and I did the interview there in a like a condo, and they had all their lights set up and everything. And I did record it, so I do have the full interview.
Oh, smart.
Yeah, so I have the full interview just in case they was going to do something funny and make me look stupid, make me look bad or whatever. So
Right.
I did record it. And then as time went on, it got around September and they started reaching out to me. But by that time, I started hearing, there's been time since January 6th and September. And I started doubting it. I was like, man, I don't know if I really want to be in this because more truth was coming out, more things about, January 6th was being released and exposed. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to be in this.
Right.
And so they kept emailing me and I was just like kind of ignoring it for a while.
Yeah.
And I finally got back a hold of them. I said, I'm not comfortable about, with myself being in this. I don't know how you guys are going to spin this. I don't know how you guys are going to use it. And so they said, well, we can send you the segment of your piece and the footage that we're using. I was like, okay. So they sent me the stuff. And even then I was still like, I don't know, because they wasn't sending me the complete hour and a half. They were just sending me my part. And I'm like, even with my part, just seeing my part without the full context, I'm like, I don't know. And then they said, well, what about this, or what about that, and I said, okay, I'll do it. And so I did it, and I'm not disappointed that I did do it, especially once I saw and heard that other conservative conservative streamers and reporters were in the documentary.
Well, I will tell you, and I was going to kind of mention this because I went from that addiction, kind of overcoming that that public perception of what addiction is and what happens. It moved into mental health field, and we had some mental health stuff with my wife where her doctors suggested that she get a service dog, and that was about 2011, 2012. And we had a trainer help us train a dog who was an amazing. Actually, it's that dog right there on the wall.
Oh, so cute.
Yeah, so we're now on her third service dog. But through that process, I really started to understand how horrible people were in the community from the business standpoint, from people using their own personal dog as a fake service dog, and how people just didn't understand what the laws were and how they needed to know. And so originally I took it upon myself. I'm going to educate people, and I'm going to advocate also at the state legislature. So both of those things is what started Working Dogs Oregon.
And he walked past me, and when he did, he threw something over my shoulder and hit the table. He said, "You want some?" And it was a pack of methamphetamine. I had never done it and never even seen it at that point. And I was like, all right, sure. And now he walked out of the room, so there was no peer pressure. It was just me and the drugs. And I did some, and we went to Texas. And I was very talkative on that trip to Texas. And I was up all that night, the next day, most of the next night before I slept again. And then I didn't touch it for like 6 months. And at this time, I was the height of my physical training in martial arts. I was cut, I was toned, I was looking good, I was feeling good, I was doing good. So I had no reason to go back to drugs. And then it was like 6 months later, I did it again. And then it was not 5 months later, I did it. And then the time got shorter and shorter between the time I did it. And then before I knew it, I was not going to martial arts anymore. I wasn't working out. I was just doing drugs. And I met a whole new group of friends who had a different attitude, a different style. They were into heavier music. They were into different ways of doing drugs, intravenous, different things like that. And I found out I liked this lifestyle of the heavier music and the heavier attitude because I played bass guitar as well. I had my long hair, like I mentioned, and I would just play and sling. We'd get loud. He played drums, and that's what we did. And before long, I didn't have a guitar because I hawked it for drugs.
Okay, so what are next steps for you guys? Is it moving slowly, or is it something where you can put it to bed soon?
No, you know what? We're prepared for this to drag out for a very long time. The people suing us have spared no expense, with their resources. They've got upwards of 20 attorneys. They have multiple nonprofits funding the lawsuit. They have one of the largest, if not the largest law firms in the world. The judge that we're assigned to is appointed by Obama, and he recently overturned there was a lawsuit. The Department of Justice sued the state of Texas for the heartbeat bill that Texas led the way with. The judge that it was assigned to overturned the heartbeat bill abortion ban and made abortions temporarily readily available again until the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals struck it down and it appealed to the Supreme Court, which is where it is now. And we see, everybody expectantly watching that. The judge that overturned the heartbeat bill is the judge we're assigned to. So we are prepared. Yes, we are prepared to take the same course through the legal system.
How did you fare during the lockdowns in 2020? I'll just stop there. That's really top of mind for me. I want to jump right in. How did that play out for you?
Yeah, I mean, personally and professionally, it was a whirlwind. One moment you're meeting together with people, and then you're told you can't meet anymore. So that was a real whirlwind for us and our leadership team, and we had to adjust. We had to shift from being in person and doing what we normally do to completely shift online and incorporate technology and different things in order to continue to connect with people and keep getting the message out. And what was most difficult during that time is after a short amount of period, my job was no longer available due to finances with COVID. They had to let me go. And so that shifted everything for me and my family that eventually led to what we're currently doing now with Hope for Today.
For lack of a better word, when the U.S. is brought up, is like, Canada's a really nice apartment over top of like a bowling alley. Like, there's just so much noise and chaos going down there. And it's like, honestly, I know I'm on a right-wing podcast right now, or right-wing show, but I don't see the difference between the left and the right wing in the U.S. It's the same. The Democrats and the Republicans at the top level are the same political party. It seems like it's the same thing. It's just they're all corporate backed.
Hey guys, welcome to the Adapt, Improvise, and Overcome episode of Blue Family Unity. I am your host, Elsa Kurt, and I'll explain. Give me a minute. If you're part of the law enforcement family, this is your show. Here we talk about all things Leo family life, the good, the bad, the funny and the sad, and everything in between. Okay, friends, this is going to be interesting. I am out of the studio today, this whole week, actually. I am in sunny, beautiful, wonderful, free Florida, and I have no studio here. I'm on vacation, and I still want to bring an episode to you guys. So I figured, well, you know what? Let's be a little unconventional. Let's do things a little bit different. So what's going to happen today is you are going to hear and see, depending if you're listening or watching the show, you're going to hear and see life. You're probably going to hear dogs barking. There's 3 dogs inside, which means, and a baby, by the way. My granddaughter is inside. She's sleeping right now. So, look at this. So there's going to be a lot of gaffes here. So hang tight. We're just going to roll with it and see what happens. But yeah, I'm in a location where there's no quiet place. It is early in the morning. I have bags under my eyes. I am tired. But I'm very, very happy. I'm in a wonderful mood. I have been spending the whole week, my whole vacation. I'm looking for lizards right now. I thought one just ran by me, which I'm fine with. I'm not afraid of them. I like them. But anyhow, I have spent my whole week so far with my daughter and granddaughter here in beautiful Florida, and it has been magical and wonderful. And yes, a little bit exhausting. The baby is, she doesn't like the car. So she cries a lot, like aggressively in the car. So that's been a little bit rough. But listen, I don't care. I'll take it. I don't mind. She can cry all she wants. Preferably not, but it's okay if she does. So anyhow, I thought we would, since everything is just a mess. Do you hear the bird sounds and everything? Since we're so out of sorts for this episode, I thought we would just kind of forego all of the usual things that we would be doing. We would be doing Not in the News today. We would be doing Pardon My Preach. Maybe we can still do Pardon My Preach. I'm sure I have something that I could rant about. There's always something to rant about, but my goodness, it's so much nicer to not have to, right? We're never going to get away with that. You know what? I'll tell you what, because I'm just thinking of it now. I told you, this is completely off the cuff, no script. I mean, not that I ever really do a script, but let's do a little Pardon My Preach. It's going to be a little bit random here, but let's do it. It's time for Pardon My Preach. Because I was just thinking about it as I was talking, because I can multitask like that. Amazing, right? I was just thinking about this whole Omicron thing and some of the stuff that our buddy, and I mean that very sarcastically, Joe Biden said ahead of the holiday, ahead of Christmas, which is that basically it's going to be a winter of death for non-boosted or unvaccinated or whatever the case is. If you are considered unvaccinated, which if you're not getting your boosters, apparently you are probably considered unvaccinated, right? So yes, for those who are unvaccinated or unboosted, it will be a winter of death for us and everyone we come in contact with. I was going to drop an F-bomb and I technically, I can't, I can bleep it out, but I'll forget to bleep it out. So that's bull crap. How about that? That's a nice way of saying it. How dare he? How dare he terrify people over what is essentially a common cold? A common freaking cold. What are the symptoms of the Omicron variant? Runny nose, scratchy throat, headache, right? I think that's one of the things. It's like a common cold. So yeah, you want people to spend another holiday away from their loved ones for a common cold. Not going to happen, bud. Obviously, it didn't happen. People traveled. People did. A lot of flights were canceled. That was a little scary. I'm not going to lie. we're done with Pardon My Preach. I'm pissed off about that crap, but now we're moving on to my story. So we flew down to Florida on Christmas Eve, which I was nervous about because I was not nervous about flying because of the COVID or anything. I was nervous about flying out on Christmas Eve because of possibly missing our flight or our flight getting canceled. Sorry, I had something in my mouth. I listen, off the cuff here. What are we going to do? So everything was looking good. We got to the airport. Everything was fine. Our flight was for, what time was our flight? 5 p.m., 5:10 to be exact. Our flight was for 5:10 p.m. Everything was looking good, everything on time. We got there early because we were concerned about there being a mad rush and it being crazy at the airport. It was not. It was extremely quiet there, which was weird in itself, right? We were a little freaked out by that, but we also figured, it's like a late flight. Most people took the early flights because Christmas Eve. And so we went and got something to eat, had a little cocktail, calmed the nerves, everything's fine. I get a text. An alert text from the airline telling me that we have a delay. We have I think it was like a half-hour delay. And I was like, okay. I'm okay with that. Then I reread the message, the alert message, and it said the reason for our delay was because of crew issues. They were having trouble finding crew to man the plane. For the feminists in the crowd, to woman the plane. I don't care. Is any feminist actually watching my show? I doubt it. Or listening to it? I highly doubt it. So then what happened? When I read that they were having some difficulties finding crew for the flight, do you want to know what happened? I won't keep you in suspense. I started crying. Like a big fat baby, like a big fat crybaby. I started crying. Like, not quite hysterically, but not terribly far off from that. Because the obvious, you've already figured out why. Because I was afraid that the flight was going to get canceled. Big deal, Elsa, you say, just catch the next flight. No, because all these other airlines were canceling flights. It was Christmas Eve. Lots of airlines were canceling flights because of crew issues. And I was finding this out like all in real time, like figuring out what was going on generally all around. So I'm starting to panic. This is my granddaughter's first Christmas. And I'm, and I know, before we go any further, I know this is not in comparison to what other people have going on and what other people have missed or lost. This is not the biggest deal in the world. I understand that. So reserve your contempt for my drama and just be sympathetic. Just be a human being and be sympathetic. And I know my listeners are, because we're all compassionate, kind people and not selfish prigs. So anyhow, I'm falling apart. I am crying. I'm having like a really hard time getting under control. My poor husband is like just trying to be calm and not say too much, because I'm one of those people that when I escalate, like, don't try and calm me down. It's not worth it. It's not worth the effort. It only makes things worse. It will only make you mad and frustrated. And my husband understands this. He knows like the best way to cope with my meltdowns when I have them, very rare, thank you, is to just write it out and just be there. So that's what he did. Very, very smart man. God bless him. Love him. And so I'm freaking out. So I look at the weather. I'm already like, I'm freaking out, but I'm also a problem solver. So I'm looking for solutions. I'm like, okay, all right. So let's say we can't get out today. What does tomorrow look like? Tomorrow's Christmas Day. Okay, I hate to fly on Christmas Day. That really sucks. But you got to do what you got to do, right? So I'm thinking, okay, let me book already before anything goes further. Even though we're still just on a delay, let me book a flight for first thing tomorrow morning, because I figured once the flight gets delayed, all these flights for tomorrow, the next day, are going to get booked up, right? So I look at the flights. I'm like, okay, we're good. We're fine. There's a flight for like 6 a.m., 6:10 a.m. Christmas Day morning, going out, direct flight. It was like really cheap. And I was like, okay, we're good. And then I don't know what made me do it, but then I was like, hang on, before I book the flight, let me just take a peek at the weather. Let me just see what the weather's going to be like tomorrow. Because where I was in Connecticut, it had snowed that morning into early day, I think it was. So that was stressful because I was afraid the flight was going to cancel for that, but it was fine. So long story long, I checked the weather, and the weather says that in our state, it was going to be freezing rain and sleet all day. So what did that mean? That meant that those flights had a high probability of getting canceled also. So now I'm at the point where I've completely escalated. I am crying. Again, I don't want to use the word hysterically or uncontrollably, but I would say those descriptions were probably not incredibly far off. Long story, even longer, everything was fine. Our flight did not get canceled. I did go up to the flight attendant at the gate check-in area there, and I asked her, and I tried to. I was like, all the way up until the moment I got to her, I was like keeping my shit together, and I was not crying ish. And as soon as I got to her, and as soon as I opened my mouth to ask her if the flight was canceled, they said, I promise that the flight is not going to be canceled. My grandchild just came out right now, and I want her, so you're all going to forgive me for that. Bring to me the baby. No, her. So I am at so you want to hear what gets even crazier? I am at my ex-husband's house. This is where we stay, and there's a puppy running at me. I mean, I told you this was going to get crazy. There's a puppy running at me. There's a big dog coming over to say hello. And there's my ex-husband holding the baby just out of my reach, knowing how badly I want to hold her right now. Hello, sunshine. Come here, come to, oh, that was so rotten. I just got psyched out. Give to me the baby. Come on. Hi, Mama. No. Yeah. So that's what's happening right now. And now the dog is pulling on the pillow that the camera is on. So this is going to be the best episode ever. I am kidding. It is probably going to go down as the worst. And now they're just making lots of noise because it's my ex-husband. He thinks that's really funny to do that to me. So this is going to be this week's episode of Blue Family Unity, a absolute shit show of a show. So we're going to take a break right now, and we'll come back right after this break because I need to hold the baby. Hey family, this is for those of you new to the law enforcement family or just looking for some relatable content. My book, Welcome to the Family, Life Behind the Thin Blue Line, is available on Amazon and through my website, elsakurt.com, and most major online retailers. This is a must-read survival guide for significant others new to the law enforcement family. When you become a police spouse or a significant other, you enter a world most can't imagine. The contrast can be jarring and often scary, especially in today's society. This book helps those new to the lifestyle navigate the myriad of challenges faced by LEO partners, but also shares the many joys of living life behind the thin blue line. Inside this book, you'll discover the ups, the downs, the normal and not so normal, coping strategies, tips for fostering strong and healthy relationships, and even the humorous side of law enforcement family life. So pick up your copy of my Amazon best-selling book, Welcome to the Family, Life Behind the Thin Blue Line, today. Okay, and we are back. Hi there. So I have a guest host right now who is hanging out with me for this part of the episode. I don't know how long it's going to last, and if she starts getting mad, we'll just go to commercial break. But this is what commercial break. There's no commercials. Sort of, there's commercials. Yeah, kind of. We'll call it a commercial break. But this is the greatest child on the planet, and her name is Raylyn, and she is quite amazing. And buttons are getting pushed here, and so that's crazy. And she's bopping around. She just woke up. Say hi, everybody. Say hi. She sees her mommy. So yeah, so that was my big drama. And this was you're looking at the conclusion of all of that drama that I self-created in fear of missing out on this. And now, of course, seeing her, you can understand exactly why I lost my shit, right? Yes, I did just say that in front of my grandchild. So yeah. Because she's staring at her mommy, just so you know, and that's her favorite sight. Look at how cute she is. Is she not the cutest thing ever? I'm so sorry if you're listening to the show and not watching it and you have no idea how beautiful this baby is, but you can just head right over to Right America Media and watch it over on YouTube, and you get to see this beautiful little sunshine. So I'm thinking what we're going to do. What we're going to do today is we are going to do, because it's like the end of the year in a couple of days, this crazy year is going to be over and we're going to move on to the next one. But the deal is we're going to move into it very quietly. We're not going to make a big fuss. We're not going to say 2022 is my year. Yay. Don't say those things. Don't say them because it's like a jinx. Okay. So we're just going to walk in real stealth-like and see how it goes. That's our plan, I think, right? Oh, she's tired. She shouldn't be tired. She just woke up. So yeah. So it's the end of the year, and we are going to do kind of just like a little year in review. And I pulled up a website. I'm not going to lie. It's not off the top of my head. There's no way. That's my hair she's pulling. And yeah, you're a hair puller. Yes, you are. Hi, pretty. And yeah, so that's what we're going to do. It's not off the top of my head. I don't remember the year. Who can remember a whole year's worth of events? If you can, I'm really impressed with you. So we're going to take a little pause and we'll come right back with that.
Crime is exploding across America. Defunding the police is causing even more chaos and increased crime in communities we live, work, and raise our families. We need your support to refund the police. Your donations will go toward the development of a national media advertising blitz to rally Americans who are sick and tired of the attacks on law enforcement. So donate today and help refund the police.
Oh, here we are back. And it's just boring old me. No baby. The baby has gone with the mama. So we are going to go ahead and get into the year in review. And we're just literally going like month by month. And this comes from cbsnews.com, believe it or not. That's where I grabbed this off of. So let's start with the obvious. Let's go all the way back to January. Now, we all remember what happened in January, right? I mean, I struggle saying it every time, but the new president, Joe Biden, was inaugurated. That's exciting, right? That's been wonderful. That's been going fantastic, don't you think? Yeah. And there are people who actually think that, but I am not one of them. So yeah, Sleepy Creepy Joe was sworn in. That was in January. And then, oh, yes, the January 6th insurrection, the lamest insurrection in the history of all insurrections, with people propping their feet up on Nancy Pelosi's desk and taking selfies and walking through like it's like they're on a White House tour. Yes, obviously there were some bad things that went on there and people doing really stupid shit. I still would never call that an insurrection, and anybody who does is delusional. But okay. Definitely people who should have been jailed and had some consequences for their actions and behaviors. So nobody's denying or disagreeing with that. That is certainly a thing. Moving on, let's see. I know what happened in February. In February, the United States formally rejoined the Paris Climate Agreement, which Donald Trump had withdrawn us from because it was a bad deal for us. And but Biden thought this would be a great idea to get right back in it, and that's what he did. Let's see. In March, I don't remember this. Oh no, I do remember this. Container ship ran around the Suez, ran aground. Sorry, I can't read this morning. Ran aground in the Suez Canal in March, holding up billions in trade. Took 6 days to free that. That's what happened. Obviously, lots more things happen in each month, but we're just giving like a highlight, a low light. It depends on how you're looking at it, I guess. April was pretty unforgettable with the Derek Chauvin case. I mean, from the start of that, what was that? I've lost track of dates and months and stuff. I feel like it was like August of the previous year that happened in. Obviously, I can be wrong. I'm often wrong, and I certainly could be then. But obviously, that was all going on much longer. This was just the guilty verdict coming in for Derek Chauvin in the George Floyd death, which resulted in a felon and a drug addict and an all-around loser being made into a martyr by celebrities and, of course, our woke politicians and of course BLM and all these people. He was their poster child. But never mind the children and innocent victims who died throughout the year and since then. Never mind them. They don't really matter because they didn't do drugs and hurt people, and their lives didn't matter. And this gets me fired up, right? We're going to move on. Though. In May, what did May happen? Oh, Elon Musk's, try that one. SpaceX was the first operational space flight by a private company. That's exciting. I apparently was oblivious of many things that were going on. Did I know that this happened? Yeah, I mean, I kind of knew. I just didn't pay that much attention. But it was a big deal for Elon Musk, who's been in the news a lot lately. And he's growing on me. This guy's growing on me. I didn't have any feelings about him before, but he's growing on me now. Let's see. In June saw the partial collapse of a 12. Oh, yes, I remember this very well. The partial collapse of a 12-story condominium in Surfside, Florida, killing 98 residents. As always with those things, there was a lot of conspiracies floating around with that. Do you remember that too? I mean, everything gets a conspiracy theory nowadays, and but a lot of times they're true. So that's a little scary, isn't it? So I don't really discount conspiracy theories. I just acknowledge them and wait to see what happens. In July brought the 32nd Summer Olympic Games to Tokyo a year after being postponed. Oh yeah, that was so confusing, right? When they kept saying the 2020 Olympics, but it was 2021. It was very confusing for me. I don't know about you. I did not watch it though. In August saw the withdrawal. Oh yeah, August was the withdrawal of the American troops from Afghanistan, the disastrous withdrawal of troops from Afghanistan, which took the lives of 13 service members. And because of, you can't even call it strategy. There was no strategy. Or worse, that was the strategy, and they knew full well what was going to happen, which is kind of hard to believe that they didn't have any understanding of what was going to happen if they withdrew abruptly. September saw the implement of the Texas Heartbeat Act, which bans abortions after roughly 6 weeks. The Supreme Court has declined to block the law, saying it's a question for lower courts. And of course, as always, any of the abortion laws or the topic of abortion starts up a firestorm of controversy and arguments and debate, and people losing their minds. So in October brought the welcome news that the World Health Organization had endorsed the first vaccine against malaria. You thought I was going to say COVID, didn't you? I thought I was going to say COVID. But the world's first vaccine against malaria. How about that? Interesting. In November, the Atlanta Braves won the 4th World Series, defeating the Houston Astros 4-2. Yet another thing that I was blissfully mostly unaware of, because I stopped watching national or professional sports pretty much back when they started taking a knee. That was it, and not being held accountable for it. So that was the end of that for me. But but I'm not part of the cancel culture, so I didn't tell anybody else that they shouldn't watch it. I just simply stopped watching it because it offended me. So what did I do? What do I do? What do most of us normal, rational, sane people do when something offends or bothers us? We stop participating in it or partaking in it or consuming it, whatever the case may be. And that is what I did. I just simply stopped. And I hope someday, we were a big football family. Sundays were a big deal for us back in the day, watching football. Loved it. Every Sunday during football season was a big event, food out all day long and company coming through. It was kind of like an open door policy. It didn't matter what team you rooted for, you wore your jersey over, you had friendly competition, and it was just such a great time. And so disappointing that they ruined it for us with their wokeness and didn't just. Here's my thing with that. Another soapbox moment. Gosh, should I get my preach intro out again? But the thing with that, and I think a lot of you can agree or will agree or do agree, that it's the hypocrisy for me. So if you're not going to allow players to wear memorandum shoes or sneakers or cleats, whatever they are, for the 5 Dallas officers that were slain in the line of duty a few years back, those Dallas players were denied. They requested to wear something to commemorate, something to honor those fallen officers, and it was denied. So if you're going to deny that, but you're going to allow your players to make political statements, essentially, or social consciousness statements, there's the hypocrisy. So it's either no to all of it or yes to all of it, but you don't pick and choose. So ultimately, my opinion on it is, you're paid to play a freaking game. Get your ass out there, play the game, earn your money, your astronomical, ridiculous, stupid amount of money for playing a game. But whatever, that's the world we live in. That's how we value things. So go do that. And if you want to have your special causes off the field on your time, knock yourself out. I don't really care what you do off the field. I mean, as long as you're not, killing anybody or hurting anybody, do whatever the hell you want. It's not my problem, none of my business. But don't bring it out on the field. And unfortunately, that's exactly what they did. Every sport, everything, every television show, every single thing that you can think of, they brought their politics into it, when all we really want to do is we want to watch a damn game. That's it, right? If you disagree, tell me. I want to know if you disagree. In December, we already got to December. I flew through these, didn't I? Can you tell that I'm dying to get back into that house, to that baby? Yeah. You forgive me, though, right? You understand. You saw her. You understand. Let's see. In December, tornadoes ripped through the South and Midwest, killing at least 91 people. Yes, that obviously just happened, and that was shocking and devastating and very, very tragic. And then, of course, throughout all of this, we have been still dealing with COVID. This is day 800, 900,000 in the 15 days to stop the spread. And it's just a constant, nonstop, sometimes low key, sometimes screaming, blaring shit show. This is the word of the day, I think. I think I've said that like 3 times now. I'm going to go back and count how many times I said shit show. There it is again. The thing is, I think we can all agree we are tired. We are so tired of hearing about COVID, thinking about COVID, dealing with COVID, worrying about COVID. And it's not to minimize the actual loss of life, the people who have died, the people who have suffered, the families that have been affected and missing out on time. And that is our greatest commodity that we have. time. And the older you get, the more you understand the value and importance of time. I feel it. I turned 50 this year. That was exciting and also anticlimactic. It was like, okay, I feel exactly the same. I actually feel better than usual. Sorry, there's like truck noises going on out here. We had a nice little lull where we just had the bird sound. But now we have the sound of a truck, and I do apologize, but it is what it is. I mean, it made me lose track of what I was saying and everything, for God's sake. So, yeah. So not minimizing anything that it has gone on, all the bad and negative things that have gone on for people. But the simple fact is we're just exhausted from it, and we're ready to move on with life. And I really, really hope that the people who have lived in fear of this, like to the point where they have shut down life and given up their time with loved ones and friends and simply enjoying life, I do hope that they are sick of this. Thanks for listening to the show. We'll see you next time on Blue Family Unity with Elsa Kurt. And remember, united we thrive. The Blue Family Unity Show was created, written, and produced by Elsa Kurt. Music written and produced by Dan Tracy.
Florida could be the 22nd constitutional carry state. More COVID craziness. And our very special guest, Charlie Cook from Riding Shotgun with Charlie, in the studio today. This is The Loaded Mic, and I'm Dan Wass. Utah, Vermont, West Virginia, and Wyoming. If passed, HB 103 would make Florida the 22nd. Alabama could soon be joining them. It would seem the desire for more guns in the belts or purses of good guys and gals is gaining in popularity, and this shouldn't be a surprise to anyone after witnessing the devastating riots, looting, arson, and violence in the 2020 violence in cities across America by radical left-wing terror groups. Of course, there will always be pushback on any pro-gun measures by Democrats. But in this case, even some Republicans are trying to thwart the efforts of Representative Sabatini and deny Florida residents their right to keep and bear. The bill's sponsor wrote this on Twitter, quote, "Meanwhile, here in Florida, anti-Second Amendment Republicans in the legislature refuse to allow my constitutional carry bill to move forward," end quote. Sabatini has filed his bill several times since his election to the House in 2018. Matt Collins, director of legislation for Florida gun rights, has been a strong supporter of the bill and is quoted as saying, "There's no excuse for Florida legislature to delay the passage of HB 103, constitutional carry." With Governor DeSantis on board and self-proclaimed pro-gun Republicans in control of both chambers. Law-abiding gun owners in Florida deserve to see their elected officials restore gun rights in 2022. Over 10% of the population in Florida hold concealed carry licenses, and with the nickname the Gunshine State, it's safe to say that should constitutional carry pass, that percentage could quickly double. Add to it the number of open carriers in Florida could soon be the safest place on earth. Besides the vast support for constitutional carry and the typical anti-freedom opposition, there was one interesting thing to note, and that's Florida's Governor DeSantis seems to be in favor of the bill. In a brief 6-second video shared by the National Association for Gun Rights, Governor DeSantis can be heard saying, "Of course," after being asked if he would support constitutional carry in Florida. Now, the video was recorded on December 3rd at a reception at the governor's mansion. So today, we have the whole crew in the studio, and I want to talk about the importance of being able to carry a gun to defend yourself. Now, we're here with John Chiara, Anthony Diso, and our special guest, National Second Amendment advocate and host of Riding Shotgun with Charlie, Charlie Cook. So, guys, what do we? Let's get this out in the open. How do we feel about people carrying a gun in public?
I have a question.
You have a question? Okay. Questions first. Okay, so all questions first.
The people that are openly carrying in Florida, are they already legal gun owners under whatever laws there are in Florida in order to own a gun? What is that? How is that? What do you need to do in Florida to have a gun?
You can open carry in Florida. Is this correct, Charlie?
You can open carry when you're doing the ING activities, which is
fishing and
hunting, camping.
Okay.
You can carry to and from when you're going to do these activities.
Are these handguns, rifles, or does it matter?
Anything.
Yes.
Anything. So can anybody just go buy a handgun in Florida? What kind of process do they have?
Still have to do a background check.
Okay.
Right. And
so they're not total strangers walking in and just grabbing a gun and walking around.
And you're still going to have to, for a handgun, you're still going to have the permit, correct?
I'm not 100% sure, but I think so.
Currently now, I believe, because that's the idea of constitutional carry. Constitutional carry, so let me back up. So you do need a permit in Florida to carry concealed. Okay? You don't need a permit to carry in Florida if all the things Charlie said. Right. Going to fishing and trapping and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Well, this bill would allow you to not need a government-issued permission slip to carry open or concealed.
Make sense? But to get the gun in the first place, like in New York State, if I don't have a gun permit, I can't walk into a gun store and touch a gun.
Not true.
They won't hand you a revolver.
Handgun, yes.
Handgun, right. So is that different in Florida or not? I don't know.
Good question. I don't know. Can you go into a gun store? Will they hand you a handgun to check out and play with?
Right. I call it fondling the hardware.
Fondling the hardware without a license. I don't know that states are as strict as New York when it comes to that stuff.
But I mean, the people that have guns in Florida that are looking to open carry are already gun owners anyway. They're not.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly would assume so. I had a friend of mine that just moved down to Florida, and he's like, "Dude, come on down here. You can buy a gun at a flea market." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, you go to a flea market, you give them cash, you show them. I don't know if you have to show them the driver's license or the carry permit or something, but from what I understand from talking to folks in Florida, you can buy a gun through a private sale to someone who you know, and I don't think it's biblically or I know I guess the folks I know would want to check to see that they've got some sort of permit, and then you can do a sale. You don't have any paperwork. You don't have anything else.
And here's the thing about that. The anti-gun crowd flips out when they hear stuff like, "Oh my God, all these mass killers are getting guns, and you can just buy them, and anybody can buy them. A gun show loophole and all this nonsense." Well, I mean, when it gets right down to it, the background checks, first of all, they don't work. We showed the numbers on the show before, and I can show them again. We talked about that. The background checks don't work to stop bad guys. We already know that. But secondly, if somebody is buying a gun or receiving a gun that's a murderer, wouldn't they already be in jail?
One would think.
Right? I mean,
not New York.
No.
If you're out for a bro, I just killed 5 people. I owe $1,000.
They send them to public office.
Yep.
Yeah, they send them to they literally let them out on the streets in New York. So, but then here's the other downside to background checks is that those guys, if they want a gun, they don't need to go through a gun shop anyway.
Right. Well, I mean, a criminal's not going to go through a background check to buy a gun, right? That he plans on using in a crime. Why? Again, just ignoring that doesn't make any sense.
And
Seems to be the way to go.
And they don't need to, because the black market on guns in America is pretty thriving. It thrives pretty well. As a matter of fact, there's so many black market guns that the last I read, the prices were not any higher. If they were, just slightly higher than retail. In other words, if you're paying, I don't know, what's a Glock going for these days?
500,
500.
I'd love to buy a Glock for $500.
Used.
So, okay. Oh, used Glock.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, okay. So you buy a used Glock for $500 at the gun shop, you could buy it for probably the same price on the streets. You know, you would think that in a black market like that, the prices would be double or triple.
Supply and demand, I guess, right?
So that's you know. But
so where do all those guns come from, too, that are on the black market? Does anybody know? This is a whole big gray area for me. Like, I'm wondering, where are they coming from?
This is where they come from. They come from people that commit crimes and steal guns from other people. There's not some pipeline that goes from Georgia to New Jersey, New York. There's not a pipeline that goes from Indiana to Chicago. It's people that get guns illegally, get them illegally, whether they steal them from someone and then that person takes it and turns around and sells it to another criminal, or they
break into gun shops. There's gun shop break-ins all the time.
All the time.
And there's straw purchases.
I got last year I got a carry on relic license, and this has put me on the phone chain for the ATF. And I'm going to say 2 times in the last 3 months, I've gotten a phone call from the ATF that says that there were a couple of break-ins at gun stores up in New Hampshire. And they're like, hey, somebody broke into a gun store in this particular town. If you see anything, if gun stores are coming into your store, then, blah, blah, blah. But people get guns illegally, and obviously the people that get them illegally are going to be the ones that go out and commit crimes. We're not going to go through any of this nonsense to get a firearm. We're going to have to go through all the legal stuff because we're law-abiding citizens and rule-following folks.
Yeah, yeah. Just down the road here from our studio, there was a gun shop, and unfortunately they had weak knees, and they buckled because of the FFL regulations and stuff. So they went out of business. They're not selling firearms anymore. But when they were open, they were broken into. I mean, the front window was smashed, and whoever went in and
criminal activity.
Because I mean, think about it. This is where you're getting a bulk of guns right there in one shot, and that's what they're doing. And then they're selling them on the street. So that's one. A straw purchase is another. Where you get one guy who's able and legally able to buy a gun.
Yeah,
he's a straw purchaser. He buys them and he sells them.
Like buying liquor for underage kids.
Buying liquor for
exactly.
Well, plus I'm assuming that I don't know what the numbers are, but I'm assuming there's not millions of criminals out there looking for handguns, right? Maybe not. I mean, what we're saying is supply and demand is pretty much evened out. So there obviously isn't more people wanting them than people that can supply them. So
right.
But I don't know what the numbers are for.
There's a lot of them in Albany.
I believe you there.
There's community guns too. I mean, people
there you go.
Leave them under dumpsters or in garbage cans or whatever.
Under a porch.
All the time we hear these stories. Well, if you want your kids to know how to be safe with a gun in case they find one at a park, I'd love to find a gun at a park. Like that's the day I'd go play the lottery.
Well, it's really weird too. It's a community gun. Let's go find a gun in a garbage pail, pick it up, and aim it at somebody and shoot it. Like I'd be afraid somebody was sabotaging I would never pick up a strange gun and just shoot it at somebody.
Of course, you know how they got there, right? Hunter Biden dropped them off.
Yeah. Well, Charlie, you brought up something that was interesting. I wanted to touch on it. They'll use the excuse like with Chicago. What's the connecting state? Indiana. Okay.
They say they'll come from Gary, Indiana.
Yeah. Well, so they say. So here in Chicago, you've got crime that's just freaking blowing up. I mean, it's off the charts. Violent crime. A lot of it is with guns. And so what the anti-gun crowd says is, well, the reason there's so much crime in Chicago is because they're going to Indiana, and this is the pipeline you're talking about. They're buying guns in Indiana and they're coming to Chicago. So they're trying to blame it on the guns. But if that were true, wouldn't the people in Indiana be killing each other too? Right?
Yes.
Because you know what would make it easier? They wouldn't have to go across state lines.
They wouldn't have to cross state. So it's all a bunch of BS. I mean, what do you think?
It completely is. You know, I think Ted Nugent once said, if all guns are dangerous, or no, if all guns are killers, then mine are broken.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So Charlie, we talk about the gun laws in New York State. We talk about some of the ridiculous laws in New York State. But you come from Massachusetts,
Right.
and you have right now some ridiculousness going on with the animal rights activists. Let me read you a little bit. And don't worry, we're going to bash New York too, so I don't want you to.
I don't want me to feel bad.
My state's crappier than yours, trust me. But I'm going to pick on you. So
it's a peeing contest to see who's in a worse state.
The state is facing an imminent egg shortage. It looks like 2021 isn't going to be over easy for Massachusetts. This is Yahoo. I'm reading from Yahoo. Yes, believe it or not. An animal rights bill taking effect January 1st. Threatens to decimate the state's supply of chicken eggs unless the legislature can amend it in time. The bill in question is called the Prevention of Farm Animal Cruelty Act. Okay, it's a state law passed by ballot referendum 2016 when it takes effect next month. The law will institute new ethical standards for Massachusetts agriculture industry. One section of the law will prohibit the sale of eggs produced by chickens confined in a cruel manner. So what are they going to do now? They're going to have to court the chickens and
buy them a drink.
I think they should build the White House and put them in there.
Buy them a drink, take them out for dinner. They're going to watch a show, dinner and a movie.
I just don't.
I thought New York was bad.
This is what I love. So I read the article. It said that they're in cages that are 1 square foot. And and now it said they're going to go up to
1.5.
1.5. But then the numbers are the egg production rate is going to drop 90%. I'm like, dude, the math doesn't jive. You're going up. You're going down 1/3 of your cage size, but then your production drops 90%.
What do you?
I don't get it.
How does the mean to chickens? Is that the?
Well, I like chickens.
We have them. We allow them to exist so they can produce eggs for us. I mean, what is so hard about that to understand?
Really, how many chickens would there be if they weren't in?
Exactly.
They'd be all getting killed by foxes and wolves and stuff. Right? Coyotes.
This is so ridiculous.
You need eggs to make food. So what are they going to do in Massachusetts? Just suck on some grain for a little while?
I like eggs.
I just had eggs today.
Who's running that state?
I had eggs for breakfast.
He's got to go.
Yeah, well, I mean, you guys have had a rough time in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
God.
Gun laws, chicken laws.
Worried about a damn chicken.
I was there over the summer and I couldn't go into Cumberland Farms to get a cup of coffee because they didn't have a mask with me. Luckily, some nurse pulled up next to me to get gas. And she had a box of brand new masks. And she goes, "Here you go." They weren't going to let me in the store.
Unbelievable.
But that's what we have now in New York State. The mask can't come in.
Well, you know what Fauci's talking about? Another shutdown.
Well, Biden's supposed to talk today, I think.
Yeah.
Well,
another shutdown coming down. Shutting it all down.
Is anybody going to pay attention to it?
So what are we going to do when Megatron and Optimus Prime come in next? Is that what we're going to do? We're going to shut it all down?
So stupid.
Because it seems like a Transformers thing we got going on here. Armor Prime, Primus. What are we doing? We can't do another shutdown.
My question is, I mean, we're here in the
You're
studio.
changing the subject, you realize now, okay?
That's all right.
What's that?
You're changing the subject now.
Oh, I don't care.
Are we good? Okay, we've thrashed
No,
it,
it's
though.
fine. Whatever.
The chickens were the lead-in to the whole vaccination thing.
So here's some other stuff I got from the story. They made this law in 2016. They knew that this was going to be happening. 3 months before the law takes effect is when they start to, no pun intended, scramble to figure out a solution. Really? First of all, why did they not have anyone that couldn't figure this out 5 years ago when they made this law?
Yeah, that's a good point.
So and then they wait until the end to be like, now we have to do something. We've got a month left, and then there's going to be a chicken shortage.
So do you think they're that stupid, or do you
Yes.
think that there was a plan behind this last minute?
I'm going to say that.
What?
That's stupid.
They're that stupid.
Yes.
It's too bad, though, because these are the kind of things that if they do go into effect, first of all, they hurt poor people the most, right? Because, eggs are like one of the superfoods that we have, right? That if you're poor and you can buy a dozen eggs, you can eat for 3 or 4 days and, keep yourself, hopefully, give yourself enough nutrition to be healthy. But it seems that they don't care about anything about the people that might be affected by these laws. It's, again, like we talked about it, it's short-sighted. It goes to a certain point and nothing beyond that. What's the consequences? And we have things in New York. You see all the bills that are proposed for the New York State legislature, right? All the vaccination-related stuff, like being able to lock people up without...
If one of you guys, if somebody can pull a list up, that'd be great. You got a list? It's
crazy.
So on January 5th...
This is New York. Let's be clear.
This is New York. This is
New York proposed mandates,
you ready
right?
for this?
I'm sitting down.
Assembly Bill A8378 force COVID shot mandates to attend school.
Okay.
Force all adult vaccine records into a state database, which means you can't have a fake card now.
Right.
Force COVID shots for college, force flu and COVID for school and preschool and daycare. The last three are the best. Eliminate parents' consent to shots when a child reaches 14 years old.
Eliminate parents' consent to shots when...
Which means your mom cannot tell you you can't get that shot.
14-year-old.
The government is telling you you have to get it.
So you can't give a kid an aspirin now in school.
Eliminates parents' right to consent to STD shots for children.
Yeah, we don't know what's in those shots.
Assembly Bill 416 allows a governor to imprison without trial anyone she considers a threat to the public health. Come on and try it.
Yeah. So Charlie, you thought Massachusetts was bad?
So I guess when I realized I was a conservative is when I remember hearing people say, well, a 14-year-old girl can have an abortion without her parents' permission. And my attitude is, okay, you know what happens when you're 14 and you have an abortion without your parents' permission? On the way home from the hospital, you get scratch tickets, you buy cigarettes, you buy booze, you get a car, you get a credit card, you apply for a mortgage, and you start carrying handguns because this is decisions adults make.
Exactly.
So if you're 14 and you can make these decisions, guess what? Your 14-year-old needs to start paying some rent because they're adults. I had this conversation with my daughter for probably once a year in the middle school, early high school years. She would get up in the morning and she's like, Dad, do I have to go to school? I said, no, honey, you can quit school anytime you want, sweetheart. But when you quit school, you become an adult.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to go out and get a job. And since you're under 16, you're going to have to babysit. And babysit usually, 8 in the morning to 6 at night. So you'll have to babysit for 10 hours a day.
So what do you want to do? You want to sit in someone's house babysitting, or would you rather go to school?
Yeah, so she said, well, that's longer than school, Dad. I said, I know. Get ready and get on the bus, sweetheart. It's time to go to school.
Here's your lunch.
Right. Get out.
Matter of fact, make your lunch yourself.
Well, the thing is, so we try in society here, we try to figure out what is the adult age. I think we've landed on 18, which seems to be. But some kids are irresponsible after 18. I'm well over 18, and I'm very irresponsible and very I can be very childish, by the way.
Do you know the difference between a musician and a mutual fund? A mutual fund's mature. I'll be here all week.
The point is that kids can be very irresponsible after they're 18, but yet some kids can be very responsible when they're younger than 18. So we come up with this kind of arbitrary number of 18, and we decide at that point that kids can go off to war. You're now officially an adult. You can go off to war. You can put your life at risk to serve the country, sure. But you can't. You can't
drink alcohol yet.
You can't. In some states, you can't carry a gun. You can't buy a gun. You can't drink alcohol. You can't smoke cigarettes. Not that you want to smoke cigarettes, but whatever. Some people smoke cigarettes. You should have the right to do that. So what's the deal? I think what they want to do is and now with this thing, with the 14 years old, they want to use age to however they want to manipulate it.
Oh, sure.
So they manipulate society by saying, well, you're an adult at 14 when it comes to making a decision on the vaccine, but you're not an adult at 14 when it comes to making a decision on any of the other stuff, right?
So that might be the next thing, though. Well, they're responsible enough to get an abortion or decide on the
that's
vaccine.
nothing abortion.
Maybe we should let 14-year-olds vote. That'd be good, right?
This is what the left wants to do. They want to lower the voting age from 18 to 16 so they get more people to vote for it. But everyone knows that the brain isn't fully matured until you're 25, 26 years old.
That's why Democrats want them, because it seems like Democrats don't.
Well, they can't
have fully
persuade
matured brains.
anymore, I think, is what's coming down to it. The adults that exist in the country right now, all the ones that are going to be persuaded to think, as far as the way the left would like them to think, have already been persuaded. The rest of us, I meet so many people out every day that surprise me at how anti-government and how anti-left wing they are. Just people out of the blue.
Wait a minute, they're left wingers and
no, they're not. They're
Oh.
they're all closet Republicans that never speak up because of their jobs or whatever. You know what I mean? There's a lot of reasons why people don't talk about things in public, but in private, everybody's perfectly willing to say. I mean, last couple of weeks, especially, not even stuff that I brought up. People will just start talking about things, especially related to COVID and things like that, where they're all fed up.
Well, there's a lot of people who haven't got the vaccine. I mean, probably at least half, if not more, of the people that I know have not gotten the vaccine. But you wouldn't know that by watching the news. The news portrays it as the vast majority have been vaccinated and only a tiny, tiny minority haven't been. I don't think it's true at all. I think
it's not true. Well, first of all, if we look at Omicron, it just came from South Africa, where only like 46% of the people are vaccinated. So if all these underdeveloped countries are never going to get vaccinated and are keep going to spitting out variants, how are we going to jab ourselves to safety? We're never going to vaccine ourselves to safety. None of it adds up, right?
No.
We've talked about this before the show started, but none of it makes any sense.
No, absolutely not. It doesn't make any sense to logical thinking people. But when we look at why they're doing it, we realize that the whole vaccine thing is really just a way to condition people to be what do you call it? Obey, just
Right.
obedient. So what happens is you're wearing a mask this week. Okay, well now you're wearing it. Now you have to wear it here in these places. Okay, now we're gonna 2 masks, or now we're going to take away the mask. Now you have to get we recommend you get the shot. Now we demand you get the shot. And people, and now you don't have to wear a mask, but now you do have to wear a mask in public places in New York. So what it does is, if we can kind of step back and watch the last 2 years and replay it, what we'll see is government manipulating people on and off like a light switch with different rules and regulations, and really just trying to, first of all, find out who the obedient ones are, and they're usually on the left. They're always, okay, we'll do whatever you say. But then to try to train people into obedience. That's what the on-off switch is for, I think. It's because it was what it looks like. It's like, okay, well, these people, we're doing pretty well here. We keep on with the masks, off with the masks, on with the masks, off with the masks, and they're following. Right. They're following along. They're doing what we say.
Right.
They're conditioning obedience.
Right. Well, it's a testimony to how successful the whole government/media propaganda has been for the past, couple decades, right? I mean, like you say, so many people are just willing to follow along.
Yeah.
Oh, we got to get the booster. Oh, we got to get some girl today. She's an Uber driver. Oh, get my booster today. I'm so excited. You're excited? What are you excited for?
I'll smack her in the face. What are you excited for?
She is a deadhead.
What are you
nice
excited
girl.
How's that exciting? Sex for the first time is exciting. Getting a vaccine? Not exciting. Bro, I can't help. Come on, just hit me with it. Really?
I totally agree with that.
One of my, what I get worked up about is the friends that I have that are liberal wackos. They still are the ones.
Charlie said liberal wackos, just so everybody knows. Just for
the record, my friends that are liberal wackos are still the ones that are like, oh, I hate the masks. Take it off. Don't wear it.
Yeah.
Don't wear it. Don't wear it.
Oh, but I got you. It's the law.
Right, because what the government's doing is they're hanging our freedom as a carrot in front of these donkeys to keep them working, to keep them going, to keep them in control.
Walked into a store this past weekend, and everybody was, because New York, the new mandate. I mean, I won't do it, but so many people were doing it. And I'm like, and we even got some dirty looks. I'm like, are you serious? Are you seriously giving me dirty looks at this point in this whole COVID experience? Are you seriously going to give me a dirty look over this Omicron mandate by a governor who was never even elected, and it's not even a mandate.
Not even real.
It's not even real. So I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, seriously, you're really going to give me a dirty look over?
Like you said, they're pushing to see how far they can go and see who's going to obey, right? Now we got all these people corralled in here.
And there's a lot of people that will
There's
obey.
a lot of people.
We talked about that. The majority of, well, at least right off the rip, you get 50% of the people that will follow the rule.
Right.
No matter what it is. You can tell them to do just about anything and they'll follow it. Yep. Then it's a matter of time, coercion, pressure to get another portion of the...
It is because they're threatening your livelihood. Like me,
right?
You know, I got a show on February 11th at this local place that supposedly up till now has been insisting on vaccinations. They may have changed that recently, but what if I get there and I can't work? You got to have your car. Well, I don't have a car. Well, you can't come in. But wait a minute. This is my job. I'm here with the band, working for the band, I'm part of their production team. You don't have a card, you can't come in.
So wearing a mask doesn't matter, but it matters.
Well, even the mask aspect of it.
So you got to be vaccinated and wear a mask.
Right, exactly.
Doesn't make any sense.
Right. If one works, how come? If you got the shot, then how come you don't? You still have to wear a mask.
Right. Or if you're like me, who's got antibodies, I can't get vaccinated.
So
I don't have any choice. What am I going to do except not go work?
Right.
I don't like that.
That's what they want.
I don't like that.
We got to wrap it up, but let's pick it up after this break. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Discover Simul TV, a new streaming platform with over 100 channels of live stream content and video-on-demand movies. Family-friendly shows to classic and blockbuster movies. Subscribe today and get so much for so little. Stream in harmony on simultv.com.
The media and politicians create terms like gun violence and ghost gun and assault weapon to change the narrative around guns in America. The entire anti-gun fear campaign is built on the reactive emotions of people who don't know any better. And the media seeks their support for gun restrictions. In Good Gun, Bad Guy, I give you the behind-the-scenes look into the mind of the anti-gun radical, because before we can defeat them, we need to understand their tactics. Good Gun, Bad Guy 2 exposes the media strategies used to create a perpetual state of irrational gun fear and hatred toward gun owners. Good Gun, Bad Guy 3 reveals the political motives behind the gun grab, why the left wants an unarmed population, and what we can do to thwart their efforts. The anti-Second Amendment radicals started this evil game. Good Gun, Bad Guy is the rule book they hoped you would never see. Go to goodgunbadguy.com to get your copy or purchase the entire series. By now you've heard me talk about MyPillow and how it literally changed my life. They won't go flat. You can wash and dry them as many times as you want, and they maintain their shape. They're made in the USA, and for a limited time, Mike is offering his premium MyPillows for his lowest price ever. You can get a queen-size premium MyPillow for just $29.98, regularly $69.98. It's a $40 savings. And kings are only $5 more. So go to MyPillow.com, click on the radio listeners square, and use the promo code RAM, like RAM. You'll also get deep discounts on all MyPillow products, including the Giza Dream Sheets, the MyPillow mattress topper, MyPillow towel sets. You can also call 800-867-0416. That's 800-867-0416. But don't forget to use that promo code RAM.
On January 6, 2021, I went to Washington, D.C., along with multitudes of other Americans because we believed that the election was stolen. What they show you on the media doesn't tell half the story.
I step out, I have red dots all over my chest.
I'm really scared. They handcuffed me.
They handcuffed you?
Yes.
The 6th was all deception.
This is psychological warfare.
One voice has millions.
All of a sudden the camera's rolling. John gets
You're on,
silent.
Skipper.
No, what were you just saying? Because it was making sense.
About everybody getting Omicron and
And that's it.
Well, because the flu we have now is from the Spanish flu in 1918. That's what the flu we have that circulates every year, that they formulate new shots for and give you the shots for every year that are 20 to 40% effective, maybe. And it just keeps mutating and mutating. But, the flu numbers last year were nothing. Right.
Well, yeah. I mean, the
flu
flu
went
numbers
away.
were nothing because everything,
Right. Because our behavior changed or whatever happened. You know what I mean? So
I think the reporting changed.
Actually, Brett Weinstein just went through this today about there's 3 reasons why the flu might have went away. One was in the reporting of it, how that went away. 2 is that our behavior overall changed. And he was saying that this flu has been around for 100 years. It's adapted really well to how we live our lives. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden you go put a wall up and stop everything. The flu was going, I got nowhere to go. So
in other words, it almost knows that it's time to come out, fall or whenever flu season is.
Right. And
Every year.
expecting people to travel and talk to each other and have family gatherings and do all the stuff they normally do. But
you know what they say is that the masks, because people have been wearing masks for COVID, that it stops the flu. That's why we don't have flu. But we still have COVID rising. So does the mask, how does the mask stop the flu virus and not the COVID virus?
Because these are smart masks.
This is
plus they work better when you're standing up than when you're sitting down. Well, my friend who owns a local pub, he goes, okay, so this is and he put up a thing because he's got a Christmas party coming up and he's open all the time. He says the bar seats 20 people. Okay. They're all sitting down at the bar. Nobody's wearing a mask. 2 people walk in with masks on, and then they go and sit at the bar and take off their mask. Like, what goes on there? Like, what is the mechanism that we're protecting ourselves
Get you
with?
while sitting down.
Exactly.
It's over our heads.
But if we go back to the idea of creating obedience, that's my theory. I don't know if you guys agree with it, but my theory is it's creating obedience. And that's really the ultimate game. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
But back to what you said about the reporting even with COVID is so screwed up. Again, I keep quoting Brett and Heather because they bring up things that people don't talk about. But the whole idea of who is getting affected by COVID, who's dying, who's being hospitalized for COVID, who's dying of COVID. You can't talk about the fact that there's a lot of people out there that have comorbidities, like they're way overweight, and that probably makes a difference. Can't talk about it. Right. That's taboo. Like I say, it was in New York or where was it that they decided to not use a description word with obese, something, overly obese or something. You can't say the other word. You can't shame people. This is what they were talking
morbidly
about.
Obese?
Yeah, morbidly obese. Like the reports are saying like, oh, these people are being shamed because they're overweight. No, we're not shaming them. We're just
It's just a way of
this
categorizing.
Comorbidity, so you should be careful, right?
Well, the thing with shaming is they'll have a problem shaming. They will have a problem shaming overweight people, but then they don't have a problem shaming people that don't want to wear masks.
Big time.
Like it's
it's a complete contradiction.
Right.
I call it conditional empathy. Is what I call it. Oh, you agree with me? It's okay. Right. Oh, you don't agree with me? Oh, you're the problem. You over there, you're the problem.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a good point. Don't shame fat people, but those non-maskers, those non-vaxxers,
they're
go get them.
Devil. Yeah.
Absolutely ridiculous. So let me read something here. We were talking about, since we're on this topic, I had some notes on a CDC report. So CDC reports on the vaccine that Moderna and Pfizer cause myocarditis, and we later recently find that Johnson & Johnson causes blood clots. So here's how it goes. Since April 21, increased cases of myocarditis and pericarditis, is that how you say it? Pericarditis?
Sure.
Have been reported in the United States after mRNA COVID-19 vaccination. Pfizer and Moderna, particularly in the adolescents and young adults. There's not been a similar reporting pattern observed after receipt of the Janssen COVID-19 vaccine, Johnson & Johnson. In most cases, patients who presented for medical care have responded well to medications and rest and had prompt improvement of symptoms. Reported cases have occurred predominantly in male adolescents and young adults 16 years of age or older. Onset was typically within several days after the mRNA COVID vaccine, and cases have occurred more often after the second dose than the first dose. CDC and its partners are investigating these reports of myocarditis and pericarditis following mRNA COVID-19 vaccination. Now, the CDC continues to recommend COVID-19 vaccinations for everyone 5 years of age and older, given the risk of COVID-19 illness and related possibly severe complications such as long-term health problems, hospitalizations, and even death. But so there's what they're saying there is those two are bad because they cause myocarditis, the Moderna and Pfizer. But now we get a report from the CDC saying don't take the Johnson & Johnson because it causes blood clots. So I guess your choice is either, what do you want, Charlie? It's myocarditis or the blood clots.
It's the old question, do you want a punch in the face or a kick in the stomach?
What this whole thing does, though, again, it totally turns risk management on its head. If you're a 16-year-old kid and you get COVID, almost nothing is going to happen to you. And if it's going to be long-term, we don't know anyway. So we just don't know that. But if you get the vaccine, they've already had enough cases where it shows that there might be a risk involved. Why would you take that risk? Why would you do that? Why would you have your kid do that?
You know, this
child abuse.
This is where we get into the psychology of this stuff. And you and I talk a lot about the psychology of people and how our society functions and this stuff. I don't know. I mean, I think it's because a lot of people believed in it in the very beginning. So they took the shot. Once you take the shot, you're committed because are you actually going to be able to say, look, I made a huge mistake. I put this stuff in my body that could potentially be harmful for the rest of my life and even affect my offspring, children, if I have children or whatever. Are people going to be willing to do that? And I think most people aren't willing to do that. Just like we talk about, these anti-gun people, and Charlie would probably be able to relate to this, that the anti-gun crowd, they go out there with their picket sign saying, down with the NRA or no guns or whatever. And once you paint that on a sign and you go out in public and you make your stance,
that's the problem.
You're committed.
Yeah.
Just like the shot. I think once you take the shot, you're committed. And that's why a lot of these people just can't.
And the people that are taking the stand, they want you to take the stand.
Right.
Otherwise, you're not a good person if you don't take the stand.
Well, that's the excuse. But I think what that means is that if I get more people to take the same position that I have, then kind of by majority rule, my decision is valid.
No, it's the fallacy of consensus. That consensus means nothing.
So the more people who do it, it makes me feel better that I made the right decision.
Well, all this stuff we're talking about plays right to how our minds work.
Yeah.
We want to be right. We want to be part of the group. We want to be on a team. All these things that make sports work and make everything else work, makes advertising work. It all comes right together, right in Saul Alinsky's handbook. Right? This is how you do it if you want to take over a country. You do all these things to people. But they know that it plays naturally to our normal responses. Yeah. That's so. If you don't think past that, if you don't work on getting yourself outside that bubble, you're just in there. And what do you do? Like you said, you're committed.
And there's leverage that's used, and I call it the popular table leverage. There's leverage that's used that if you're one of us and you've taken the shot, or if you're one of us and you're against guns, if you're one of us and you're pro-abortion, whatever the cause is, if you're one of us, you're good. You're welcomed. We support you. You're one of us. You're one of the majority, and I think that's the overall narrative. If you don't agree with us, you're not sitting at the popular table. You don't belong here, and you're going to get shunned and ridiculed. And basically, we hate you. Mm-hmm. That's the leverage of the popular table, and we all had a popular table in junior high school, right?
But they've taken it. The coercion has gone to another level now. Now, if you don't get shot, you can't go to work.
Well, that's
you can't
true.
go to college.
Right.
You can't go to school. You can't do this. That's sinister. I mean, that's tyranny. That's nuts.
It's weird to relate this to Dr. Seuss, but I don't know if you guys remember the story about the Sneetches.
Yes,
they were these creatures that had stars on them.
back forth.
So and you never read this one? You
vaguely remember this.
Great.
So there's these creatures that have stars upon theirs. They have a star on their belly. They're the star-bellied Sneetches. Okay. And then they had the non-star-bellied Sneetches came in, and they wanted to be cool as well, but they don't have stars on there. So we got first class and second class.
Yeah.
Some guy came in with a machine that put a star on theirs. So he came in. He's like, "Hey, you want to get a star in your belly? I got a machine that'll put a star in your belly." Yeah. So then the non-star bellied sneetches got a star on their stomach, and then the ones who had the stars are like, "Well, we should get rid of our stars." He had a machine to take the star off as well. So they got to the point where we're putting a star on, you're a good person. Taking the star off, you're a good person. Putting it back on, you're a good person. They eventually realized that they should probably all just get along. And then the guy that had this machine walked off with a barrel of money.
Yeah. There you go. Like the lawyers or whoever in all these different situations.
Or
but this is like
the big pharma that's out
right.
there.
Hey, listen, follow the money, right?
Right. You need to take this vaccine. You need to take this booster. You need this vaccine. You know, this one's not good enough. You got to, you know, I got a friend that got the Johnson & Johnson, and he said he was talking to one of his friends, and they're like, "Oh, you can't go with the Johnson & Johnson. You got to get the Moderna or the Pfizer." So he's like, even if you kowtow to them and go with what they say, they're going to shun you for not getting the right shot.
Yeah. And right here, and this is in NBC, right off their website, in an article by Berkeley Lovelace Jr. and Sarah G. Miller. People shouldn't get the Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine when the Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna shots are available, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention said. The recommendation from CDC Director Rochelle Walensky came hours after members of the agency's advisory committee on immunization practices voted in favor of the guidance. The panel convened following an update from the Food and Drug Administration on the risk of rare but potentially life-threatening blood clots linked to the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. So this sounds exactly what they're doing. They're saying, okay, this one's bad right now, and so you got to get this one, and then they're going to come out and say that one's. I don't understand. It's just it seems like no matter what you do with the vaccine, you're not in a good position. I don't see any. Do we still see do we see a benefit of the vaccine at all?
Like what John said, other than being able to go to work.
Other than being able to, so we don't really see a medical. At this point,
I don't
because people are catching the virus with the vaccine, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so why?
What's the sense?
They're just saying that if you had the vaccine, it's going to be a lesser hit to you.
How do they know that?
But they know the Omicron is going to be a lesser hit to you already. So nature is already taking care of all this, right? Long term, let it go, let it go, let it go.
Anthony said we won't say her name, but someone who had the vaccine and had a really bad case of the virus. Mm-hmm. So how does that add up to if you have the vaccine, you're going to get a lesser symptoms?
Everybody's body is different. Doctors can't tell you how you're going to do it and how you're. My son had it. He had no symptoms at all.
Right, I had it. I had a fever.
My daughter had it. Nothing at all. And he's 10. She's 20, almost 22. Nothing at all.
It's nuts. Not to move on, but it reminds me of when Obama was in office and he made everyone get health insurance. They forced everyone to buy health insurance, and
you'd be fined if you didn't. $2,500 taken out of your taxes.
Right. And I really hate to sound like the tinfoil hat guy, but then when I'm like, wait a second, this is the stuff that Obama was doing, 12 years ago, whatever. Biden's doing the same thing. Wait a second, who's really running the show?
I know, right.
Oh, yeah.
The same agenda, basically, right?
I mean, we all know that, Biden can't find his ass with the funnel.
Can't even tie his own shoes at this point.
Right.
And in that bill in New York, they also want to say if you're unvaccinated, you're going to have no access to health care.
I thought health care was a right.
Yeah. Not according to Mr. Patrick
Apparently
Burke.
not, Charlie. Charlie, you're not paying attention.
You're in New York now.
You're in New York.
Right.
Get with the film story here. Yep.
Keep up, will you?
Patrick Burke says the upcoming bill will eliminate unvaccinated people's access to health care.
Wow.
Let them die in the street.
There we go.
Unbelievable.
They deserve it.
Well, so it brings us to this question: is why do they really want everybody to be vaccinated? And to me,
it's the Janet Jackson song, "Control."
I mean, I guess my fear is what's in the vaccine. I mean, is it going to really cause problems? Is that what they want? Because I've never seen anything pushed so hard. Do we really think Joe Biden and his administration give a damn about people dying? I mean, look what they did over in pulling out of Afghanistan. Look at the border. Do we really think Democrats in general?
Look at the border. Talk about all the stuff we've been talking about, and then look at the border.
Yeah.
Is this the same country doing both these things? Because that doesn't make any sense.
Right. Well, you have to ask yourself, do they really care about saving lives? They don't care about saving. How can we actually believe that after watching, if like I always say, if you came down from another planet, you didn't know any politics, and you watched what Democrats do, you would say, what is wrong with these people? But they say that they want to save lives, which is why they want gun-free school zones where kids get killed twice as much since Joe Biden's gun-free school zone.
Which doesn't work. Go ahead to the next example. Which
they say they want. I don't know. I really at this point I don't know what their excuse is for the open border, but
is it even open? We don't even hear about it.
People get killed.
What about the kids in the cages? Where are they? They still in the cages? They let them all go. What happened to them?
They went from 1 cubic square foot to cage to 1.5 cubic square foot.
And now we're going to have 90% less illegal immigrants because of that.
Yeah.
Solved.
They all evaporated.
But everything they do, they do under the guise of public safety, saving lives, blah blah blah, and
it's like
their policies do the exact.
It's like all the other policies. It's like freaking climate change policy and all other policies that are supposed to fix the problem when we all know that what they're doing doesn't fix the problem. It just makes people suffer, especially poor people. Energy prices go up 50%. Oh, well, that's part of the whole plan. What about the people that are on fixed income and have to turn their heat down?
Raise your hand if you're not on a fixed income.
I'm fixed.
Right? Right. I make what I make at my job, and that's what I make. And if I want to make more money, I've got to work more.
Right.
There's my fixed income. And even on that...
So everybody suffers is the point,
yes!
Right? That's the whole problem.
But so we look at the gun control stuff and we see that their ultimate goal is to disarm law-abiding citizens, probably for better control over society. We look at the open border disaster and we realize that it's really because they want to create more dependency, number one, so they can create more dependent voters. So we understand, we start to see what their game plan is. We understand that it's under the guise of one thing, and it's a horrible policy that creates bad results, and then we start to understand what the ulterior motive is with those two things. And so my question is, what is the motive behind and what is the end game behind this big push for vaccines? We're going to assume that it's not to save lives because we know Democrats don't give a damn.
You'll know in 55 years when we're all dead, and and my kids are reading about it.
Yeah, that's a great point. You make a great point because the vaccine companies are not responsible at all. That's just part of the game. Mm-hmm. They hold no responsibility. Imagine the lawsuits that would be coming down on these.
Oh my gosh!
And the other thing is, 55 years, they don't have to report any adverse. What is it that they don't have to do until 55 years?
I don't know. I just think it's going to tell you the reports of what.
Right, the long-term effects.
Long-term effects. I mean,
right. But that's 55 years from now.
Right, the long-term effects. I don't think one of the things I can't wrap my head around is you telling me the long-term effect of something that you just created.
Exactly.
That doesn't. You don't know the long-term effects. Right. We've had this for less than 2 years. You're going to tell me what's going to happen in 50 years?
But it's in the book. 55 years from now.
Well, our grandkids are going to look back and they're going to start, reading some of this stuff, and they're going to say, "My God, what happened?" Our kids, or our grandkids, or whatever. They're going to say, "What was wrong with my parents' generation? They didn't push back on this stuff? Didn't they see this happening? I mean, it's all right here. You can see the pattern. You can see exactly how it starts. You can see, first of all, other countries who've done this sort of thing with tyrannical control and totalitarianism.
Horror story from Australia today.
So our kids are going to look back, our grandkids are going to look back, and they're going to say, okay, we saw the countries before. Then we saw this whole mask thing, and we saw how this progressed. We saw the vaccine. We saw the mandates. We saw what they did to our parents and grandparents by making them lose their job and their business. The kids are going to say, how is it that at a certain point we didn't see what was going on and didn't put a stop to it? Because it's all happening right in front of our face, and it would seem we're doing nothing about it. Now, we're all speaking out against it. We were not having any of it, and we're fighting, and luckily we got a few people in Congress.
And it's weird how the hypocrisy runs because, again, I have so many people saying, well, if you don't get the vaccine, you're going to have long-term COVID, have long-term effects. I'm like, how do you know long-term effects? Long-term hasn't come yet. But yet, for some reason, you seem to know that the vaccine is not going to cause long-term effects. It's a complete contradiction, but it's following the narrative, I guess. But it's so mindless and it's so short-sighted. And it's like a lot of things we see coming from the other side. They put these policies into effect thinking they're going to fix it, and they don't know what's going to happen 20, 30 years from now. None of us know. So a little bit of common sense goes a long way. But if you don't apply that and you just do whatever somebody tells you, it's scary stuff.
It's like Nazi Germany over again.
Yeah.
Do what I tell you, or...
All right. One thing we have that saves us is what, Charlie?
It's having a sidearm, being able to protect yourself.
Right.
People are allergic to lead.
Yes, they are. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, that's why all this crap happens in Australia, right? Nobody has any guns.
No.
What are they going to do?
And the
You
government
can't
knows.
fight back in any way. Or there's not even any threat of people pushing back because they don't have any power.
It's right. It's not the threat, and it's. I mean, you were talking 2 minutes ago, and I'm thinking of that Reagan quote about freedom is one generation away. Yeah. Well, if we don't do this, if we don't put our foot down and our finger up, our grandkids are going to be like, "What the hell was wrong with you? Why don't you do something? You saw this coming. You knew this happened before. Right. You seem like you have your stuff together. Why didn't you do something? How can people be this stupid and fall for this? Because now we're living in some crappy world where everyone's got to kowtow to the government.
And because you got idiots who follow along with all this stuff that shame people who speak out against it. And what they don't realize is that we're trying to protect them and their kids too.
Yeah.
And just because they think that following along with this government tyranny is a good thing doesn't necessarily mean it's right. And maybe they should just open their eyes a little bit and say, okay, so why is all these people refusing to conform, refusing the vaccine, refusing to do all this stuff, and standing up and saying no? Instead of looking at people like that and saying, why are they doing it? Maybe we can learn from them. No, they don't say that. They say you're evil, you're racist, you're this and that, and they don't, and they ignore it. They've been trained, they've been conditioned to not.
Talk about the extreme of that, though. Again, aliens come down, they look, this is what's going on. Okay, well, the ex-president of the United States has been banned from social media.
Yeah.
How does that make any sense under any circumstances in a society where we want to have free speech and exchange of ideas if important people can't talk about stuff?
Right.
People that are influential can't talk about stuff. But people on the other side, meaning the government that we have now, they can just tell you what to do. And like you say, if half the people go along with it, it's a battle. And I don't know how it's gonna play out. It's going to be tough.
Well, I just don't want to be saying 10, 15, 20 years down the road, see, we told you so. I don't want people, because there are some people who are conformists that, I don't necessarily dislike. Maybe their family or maybe their friends or whatever. Yeah. And I don't want to have to tell them, I told you so. You didn't listen. You didn't pay attention. You didn't follow, you just followed the common narrative, and you just wanted to be blind to this whole thing. And now look at the results, whether you're sick or somebody, whatever, having bad results. So I don't want to have to say I told you so. Really, I mean, what do I got?
What's next?
There's one other thing. We got a couple more minutes.
That's late too.
I wanted to talk. Mention one thing, and oops, I lost it here. Hold on. I want to mention one thing about Nancy Pelosi. There's someone, and I can't remember. I didn't do a lot of research on this. I heard a little bit. It's just a funny thing to talk about. They're pushing for a bill. They're pushing a bill to prevent government, legislators and Congress people from buying stock, because what they can do is people in Congress, they know what's going to happen. If they know they're going to pass some bill and it's going to affect, let's say, the pharmaceutical companies, they know when to buy and sell. And so some people are saying it's a bad idea. Because to me, it looks almost like inside trading when they can.
It's insider trading, and back to what I was saying a minute ago, it's another conflicting interest where they're perfectly willing to take advantage of that consequences that they know are coming for themselves.
Yeah.
But they don't want any of us to know anything about any consequences,
Right.
or they want us to just accept whatever they say. So yes.
Well, and the point of this whole thing was that Nancy Pelosi is against this bill.
Gotcha.
And her husband have
which is how she made all of her money, right?
How do they get rich? I don't get it.
Right, because a lot of them are on $100,000 salaries or something like that.
It's like what, $180,000 to
something like that.
Right, and she just bought like a $25 million house on the coast of Florida.
You got to work. How many lifetimes do you have to work at that rate to buy that?
So going back to the chicken thing for a second, because you just brought up chickens, and I thought about this earlier. This whole chicken thing in Massachusetts could be good for the smaller farmers. I don't know if you guys have ever had eggs. I don't want to call them organic. I don't want to call them organic eggs, but if you've had
free range, is that
free range. That's it. If you've had free range chickens or free range eggs, excuse me, you don't have to refrigerate them. And
what?
Yeah,
for real?
Absolutely. I did a gun class. Somebody came over to my house. They paid for the gun class. They did the gun class at my kitchen table, and they have chickens. So they gave me a dozen eggs, and they're like, listen, if you don't wash them, if you don't put them in the fridge, you can leave them on the counter for 2 or 3 months.
Right.
And I was like, what? So I waited a month, and I'm like, for a month, I'm like, I don't know about this, man.
So what's the difference between them and other eggs that you have to
once they get washed or bleached, then you have to refrigerate them.
Strip stuff off the shelf.
Yeah,
right,
the stuff that naturally seals up the egg. So this could be good. Like the egg thing could be bad for the farmers, the sweatshop chicken owners, or the egg farmers. But it could be good for the smaller people that have chickens. I mean, I probably know a half a dozen people that have 8 or 10 chickens.
I know a girl's got 50.
Yeah, there you go. So she could set up a little stand outside of her place. Hey, $4 for a dozen eggs.
Right down the street. Actually.
I never felt bad about making chickens produce eggs.
It's their job.
If they don't get it out, they die. I would assume, right? You can't have them piling up in
it's
there.
Their job. Like, there's a reason that humans are at the top of the food chain, and as the people who live at the top of the food chain, we get to have animals be our food. This is just what it is.
Look at Animal Farm.
That's the way it works. That's the way it's always has worked. Danny's telling us we're done here. We're out of time. But thanks, guys. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas.
Charlie, thanks for coming to the studio today from Massachusetts. We appreciate having you here.
Happy to. Thank you.
Anthony, thank you. And so, excellent. So we'll see you guys next week. Thanks so much for watching The Loaded Mic on YouTube, Rumble, Simul TV, and Right America Media. You can also catch the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, whatever your favorite podcast app is, we're there. I'm Dan Wass, and the Second Amendment is not a privilege, it's your right.
Of us arrived at Capitol Hill around 10 this morning, then started the 16-block walk to the White House to hear the president's speech. I wanted to see how many people were coming to town for the rally and get some good footage. The streets were pretty empty at that time, and we saw a very small group of people rallying on the back of the Capitol. We'd been told there were about a dozen different rallies. All had different speakers and went by different names. For us, it was about the location. Since we parked on the hill, on the Senate side, we wanted to end up there at the end of the day. It took about 40 minutes to walk from the Capitol to the White House, and the entire way it was packed with fun, energized, polite fellow Americans carrying American flags and various other signs that signified they were not convinced the election was done properly. We saw police hanging out on corners. We smiled and waved and thanked them for their service when we got close enough. We saw a group of about 4 National Guard members and gave them a welcome thank you also. As we got closer to the White House, the president was about 45 minutes late in speaking, but everyone was patient and enjoying the festive environment. After he finally started speaking, we stayed for about 20 minutes because we were having a hard time hearing. He said something about seeing everyone on the Hill after his speech. Everyone had planned to go back up there anyway because of the several rallies that were going on in that general direction. We started to walk back to the hill thinking we could get some good photos of him speaking and hear it better. Well, pretty much everyone else was thinking the same thing as the group on the edge of the large group started heading back to the Capitol. There was excitement in the air as people hurried up Constitution Avenue to come in through the large, wide sidewalk or walkway up the steps to the Capitol. I was hurrying to get some great shots and saw a fence down next to the big sidewalk. There were no police, not one at that entrance. I thought that was odd. They were allowing people to just come into the lawn and walk over barriers. I was really thinking someone would tell us to go in another area, like they always do on the Hill. You can't just roam around like this without 5 policemen yelling at you. It was as though everyone was being encouraged to run up to the stage and get a good space to hear the upcoming speech. It was hard to keep up with them as they walked rapidly into the front, but I ran alongside on the grass getting some great motion shots. There was no sign of barriers anywhere, other than that little green plastic fence on the ground that we walked over. Everyone just walked down the sidewalk, over the little bridge, then toward the front of the Capitol. There was not a feeling that you were breaking the law or anything. It was more like they were told there was free pizza at the steps of the Capitol, and that was where everyone was headed, to get a good position near the podium to hear the president. They all stopped when at the end of the line because we couldn't go any further. We stayed like that the entire time, even after people were beckoning people to push in further. That happened several times along the way, but no one followed them. I overheard a man on a phone talking about almost being ready for a coded move. I glanced at him and he turned his back. He said something about using water cannons and tasers to control them. The 4 of us just kept moving as close as we could, getting great shots. Everyone was talking about Trump saying he was going to be coming to the Capitol to speak. We weren't sure, but we knew with all these people there was no way they would be able to get through the crowd. But it looked like a podium was ready for a speaker, so maybe he was coming. I was just focused on getting some great shots. The crowd grew thicker, but it was still the same group of happy warriors singing songs, chanting USA. That was when the 12 militia-type people went over the short wall right next to us on the command of someone who said that it was ready for them to go. I was standing on the little wall that was on the left side of the wide sidewalk, right at the corner where you would turn left, so I was as close as you could get and still say hi to get some pictures. It was about then that the flashbangs started. We were shocked, since there was no violence at all. Everyone was just standing there. They kept shooting them, some with ear-piercing persistence. Then when we saw a green plume of smoke, we were convinced it was tear gas and decided to leave. 2 of us immediately got scratchy throats, but thankfully didn't have eye issues. That was at about 1:45. We left the Capitol and walked about 7 minutes to a building we were staying in behind the Supreme Court. The TV was on, and it was showing that the Capitol was being breached. Guns had been drawn by the Secret Service. People were forced on the ground. All incidents had wonderful photos of each event. Why were so many photographers allowed to breach the Capitol? How did the protesters get into a secure building that makes everyone practically stripped to get in, especially carrying flagpoles, backpacks, etc.? You can't carry things like that into the rotunda. Yet there was a line of people peacefully walking through the rotunda with all these elements. Where were the barriers? Where were the police and guards? There were none. It's as though the people walked in going, okay, where do we go now? Where does the tour start? They literally looked like tourists. I knew many people who came to the rally and had been on this phone with them, all of them, so that we could meet up later. They were all in front of the Capitol and some on the backside, and did hear the flashbangs and the smoke, but said there was no violence outside the Capitol where they were. They were right where the video was showing barriers being breached, with the riot police pushing back against them. They said the same thing we did. There were no barriers. There were no police. One man said they were actually buzzed into the back of the Capitol and just started wandering around. I think it must be the crypt from the way they described it. They didn't hear or see any violence, no signs of police or guards. Several followed them in like that, but they said it was like being on a tour of the Capitol. This is borne out by photos that were being shown on TV, like the selfie taken with the guard and a protester, or the one with the man in fur doing a kind of dance in front of some police just standing there smiling. We had seen a battalion of heavily armed police running double time outside all over the Capitol, up and down the steps, totally in view of all of us, but not one is left inside the Capitol to keep a crowd from coming in from the outside. I still want to know how there were so many photographers staged all over the inside of the Capitol to get every single move, every single action, as though they were with a camera crew, as though the whole thing had been, directed, written, orchestrated, scripted. Hey, I'm a producer. That's how I think. But it's just so odd there were not enough police inside to prevent the breach or to keep the people from doing whatever they were doing, posing for selfies. And on the back of the Capitol, while this breach was supposed to be occurring inside, you see a line of police just hanging out on the steps with the protesters. They look like they're in a choir or something, certainly not concerned about riots happening inside. I don't see how that happened the way it is shown. Again, I make movies and understand how easy it is to stage anything you want people to believe. First big thing, there was no press outside, just tens of thousands of people with their cell phones. There were people like me with larger cameras, but the video of the skirmish looks too choreographed. And where did those agitators come from, unless they were the 12 we saw climb over the wall and head in that direction, making their way through the crowd toward the front where the flashbangs were coming from? I mean, they clearly were the agitators that you're seeing in the videos, right along with the clueless Trump protesters that are walking in benignly going, what in the world are we doing here? It's like two different movies were being shot simultaneously. One group of people knew exactly what was going on. The other group were clueless. They were what you call extras in a movie. They were a great backdrop. Like all the people, the hundreds of thousands of people out the front that were standing there waiting for a speech. They were just waiting peacefully. It just doesn't make any sense. The most logical explanation is that it was professionals who were ordered to infiltrate in order to control the debate, turn the tables on Trump supporters to make them look like radical anarchists, like Antifa and BLM, two groups that have gotten a bye all year as far as their violent rioting goes. Not one word from these sanctimonious talking heads on TV about how disturbing, despicable, embarrassing, upsetting, etc., about the attack on the White House, the statues in Lafayette Park, the defacing of the road in Lafayette Park, the defacing of the road in front of it, the setting on fire of a church across from the White House. Where was the outrage when that attack on our democracy occurred? What about all the attacks of private citizens and even elected officials coming from the White House after the RNC revised convention? They were told not to go out at night. It's too dangerous. It's their own fault for being attacked, etc. Even a U.S. senator was attacked. Nothing was said. No outrage. If they can condemn and marginalize all Trump supporters and constitutionalists while pinning the moniker of anarchists on this group instead of BLM and Antifa, then they win. Here is what outraged Democrats have said about pushing back against Republicans and anyone who disagrees with them. Cuomo says, show me where protesters are supposed to be polite and peaceful. Maxine says, if you see anyone from the cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, and gasoline station, you get out and create a crowd, you push back on them, you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere. Nancy says, people do what they do. This is in reference to tearing down statues. She doesn't have much use for statues, she claims. Well, maybe until a Trump supporter tears one down, then suddenly she's going to be a statue hugger. Biden says, if you were in high school, I'd beat the hell out of him. Oh, and his supporters are dog-faced pony soldiers, whatever that is. Kamala Harris says, these protesters should not let up. Well, she wasn't meaning Trump protesters. She was meaning the BLM and the Antifa protesters. Presley says, there needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there's unrest in our lives. Gee, a lot of people agree with you on that one. Ayanna, I think her name is. Nancy also says, I just don't know why there aren't uprisings all over the country. Maybe there needs to be. Again, that was not encouraging Trump protesters. That was encouraging Antifa and BLM. So there are double standards. We all agree with that. The media is painting every single one of these peaceful protesters in attendance today as an embarrassment, a shame to democracy, not the American way. No, the American way is get your facts straight before going off hack-bake with very questionable evidence. There were hundreds of thousands of Americans who've been beaten down, lied to, cheated, defamed, marginalized, and ridiculed, and all they wanted was to have the right to be heard, to express their views and opinions. They can't be held responsible for what a few infiltrating agitators do to their rally. I'm ashamed of those elected officials who would condemn this group, defining everyone who was there as an anarchist or an un-American criminal. This group has watched as these same politicians have turned a blind eye to the BLM and Antifa violence, suggesting it's a summer of love, giving them the room to express themselves, etc., etc. I must say, when the police in full riot gear were shooting flashbangs into a totally helpless, unarmed, and non-dangerous crowd, it was very frustrating and frankly insulting, as this group was practicing their First Amendment rights to protest what they see as unfair, yet are now being disparaged as despicable anarchists.
Forget the men who died who gave that right to me. Until we stand up next to you and defender still is gonna hate this. Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
What's going on over there? Are you safe? I'm going, yeah, they were singing Amazing Grace. All my nieces leading them in Amazing Grace. That's all you heard was the song Amazing Grace. And at the same time, they're showing on TV these massive, riot things going on. And then
There's so many unanswered questions, like why did the police take barriers down and let the rioters in? Were these the agitator plants that many had seen, 40 deep, being escorted off a bus, all Antifa? What about all the footage of the Patriots stopping the violence, Antifa rioters from busting through windows and destroying property? Where are the police or guards at the doors? Everyone said they just walked in, some thinking it was great to be able to be this far across the country and get a tour of the Capitol. A man in the back of the Capitol said they were buzzed in and no one was there to, quote, greet them or turn them back. There's footage of the police getting selfies with protesters, or smiling as a man in animal skins does a dance, or leading them down the hall and encouraging them to keep up.
News cameras, journalists everywhere, but yet, take a look at this. Look, they running in. And this is the video that I'm talking about. That looks staged as hell. Come on in. Then he drops his baton and just picks it up. Why are you not using your spray?
Don't follow me, everybody.
Right. Why are you not using your spray or your taser?
Well, watch. They talk at the top of the stairs, too. Watch.
This is ridiculous.
Now he's running away. Looks like if you look at the arm, the sleeve of that person that was recording, it looks like it's the same uniform that he has on.
Yeah, look. Now they talk. Like, hey, catches him. Let's go.
Yeah, come on, guys.
Follow me.
Don't be late.
I'll show you how to get there.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
There's so many unanswered questions, and I would encourage our elected officials who are being protected in a room for 4 hours to get to the facts, get to the bottom of this, because something is not adding up. And it's not fair to judge all of these people and say they were all violent rioters when they just wanted to make their voices be heard.
It is necessary to purge the establishment.
What she's suggesting that churches do, a focus on...
That's not necessarily a good thing to start with.
They're stating
it wasn't around when we needed the greatest generation of the 30s or 40s. Or...
It happened before the election because there are too many Republicans that are afraid that their wrongdoings are going to...
It's unacceptable, and I'm not going to sit here, stay silent, and not call it out. I'm calling out their lies.
Do they think that we are so stupid that we